Okay, we're going to get into the installation of a Intelli-Shade battery powered system. We've already set the brackets per the prior module. At this point in time, we just want to double check something first before we proceed with installing the shade system into the brackets. Double check and make sure that your battery hanger bracket has been installed in the appropriate location. I'm going to take the battery pack. I'm just going to set it into the tab here. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the battery hanger bracket, and I'm just going to make sure that it's anywhere from 2 to 3 inches within the end of the battery pack. This should have already been done per the previous module. Measure your battery pack and set your hanger based on the battery pack length. This happens to be a Bat Pack 2. There are 3 different sizes, so do pay attention to that when setting and installing the battery hanger bracket. Okay, we've checked that. The other thing that's very important is check to make sure that you're putting the correct shade in the correct window. That's also going to be very helpful. I'm going to measure this. I'm just going to do a quick check measure just to make sure. So I'm going to set this here. Okay, we're at 56 3/4. I'm just going to make sure that I look at the packaging on the outside of the shade that's specified for this particular window. Make sure it measures 56 3/4 thereabouts on the label, so I know I have the right shade. Okay, so I'm going to grab the shade. This has already been taken out of the packaging, so I cheated a little bit. One thing I really want to stress and point out is make sure that this idler pin on the idler end is all the way out and locked. Okay, it's possible that in shipping and transport, what have you, this could perhaps get moved out of place, okay, or become unlocked. So just make sure you spin that pin all the way out, lock it into place. Okay, that gives us the pressure we need to keep this held into the bracket on the motor end. The other thing that's very important, make sure that your motor limits are facing downward where the motor lead is. So in a battery installation, the wire needs to be facing downward. You need to make sure that your red and blue mechanical limit tabs are facing downward as well. We're now going to set the idler end in first into the bearing. We're going to push all the way, and we're going to then bring the motor head around the pins, and you can use the indentation on the motor head to help get around them. And then we're just going to go ahead and make sure that it is on the center pin, which is your guide, and then just turn it a little bit till it falls onto the other 2 pins, and it should end up tight to your motor side bracket. If there's a gap here of any sort, make sure that you turn it. Make sure that it's all the way on there and tight to the motor side bracket. Okay, we're up, we're ready, we're installed. Now what we want to do is we want to adjust the motor limits. The motor limits are set from the factory based on the length that the shade system was ordered as, and the factory will typically set the hem bar so that it's pretty much in line with the bottom of the fascia bracket, which has been done here. I'm going to actually adjust them. I'm going to see where they sit first, and I'm going to do an adjustment. What we have here is a hot box. This is a low voltage hot box for setting the motor limits on the DC battery powered system as well as the DC hardwired system. This makes the job much, much easier, so please utilize this. We include this with the order. We also include a 24 volt transformer or power supply. Barrel connector goes right into the hot box. On this end, okay, we're going to do one more thing. What we're going to do on this end is we're going to get the Phoenix connector onto the motor lead. There's a Phoenix connector that comes in the box with the interface. In order to cut the wire at the appropriate length, I'm going to set the battery pack up in here. I'm going to run the wire across the top. You don't need to put it into the wire mold, just run it across the top. Put your battery pack in the bracket. What you're going to want to do is cut this at 6 inches past the end of the battery pack. Measure out 6 inches, cut your wire. Then strip off about 1/4 inch of insulation, and then go ahead and terminate it into the Phoenix connector via the little flat screw head terminals. Make sure you have a small flathead screwdriver to do that. This has now been cut at 6 inches. It is ready to be connected to the IZMC, which we'll show you in a little bit. But now that that's done and the Phoenix connector is on there, we can just very simply plug it into the hot box, which is very simple and easy to do. Now that they both have the Phoenix connectors on them, just get them oriented correctly and you're good to go. Okay, the switch on the hot box. Up is not necessarily up, down is not necessarily down. So just hit it one direction. If it doesn't go anywhere, hit it in the other. This one happens to be opposite. Really not important. Just want to make sure you know that so you don't think that something's not working right. I'm going to run this to the down position. Now from the factory, the limit has been pretty much set exactly where you want it to be. Just to help from a training perspective, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to adjust the limits and then get them set or reset for you, and you can see how that's done. So I'm going to reach over here. Two things we're going to need. Our wand, okay, for adjusting the limits. This comes with the shade system in the box or in the packaging. The other thing is our instructions. You can get these on the web, off our website. They also come with the product in the packaging or in your shipment. And what these do is tell you exactly what to do here to get these motor limits adjusted properly. One very, very helpful hint is when adjusting these motor limits, it's always easier to reduce your limit and then add to it. And I'll show you why that is. So with our motor limit here for the bottom setting, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this up. The bottom is our blue limit. So the instructions tell us our bottom limit is the blue. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reduce that bottom limit by running it clockwise. And I'm going to probably spin it 5 to 10 times here in my fingers. Now what I have to do is I have to run the shade system back up about 6 inches, run it back down. You'll see it stop short. I just reduced that limit by running this turn screw clockwise. I'm now going to go in the opposite direction, counterclockwise, incrementally, obviously leaving the switch on. And you can see that as you continue to turn the wand in that direction, it will continue to fall incrementally. And that way you can just turn it a little bit more. My last turn, it's set perfectly, okay? Now to do the upper, let's go ahead and run this up. I'm then going to use my red limit, which is my upper limit, clearly identified here. I'm going to stop this short. And again, I'm going to reduce that red limit because we know that the top limit is already in line with the bottom of the fascia. I'm going to go ahead and turn this again clockwise to reduce it, 5 to 10 turns. Okay, I'm going to hit the hot box here to run it up. And I'm going to incrementally go counterclockwise a little bit at a time. And I'm going to get that dialed in just the way we need to there. Okay, and that's essentially right where we want to be, in line with the bottom of the fascia bracket. So now we have set the motor limits. That's the preferred way to do it. Another method of setting the motor limits, if you don't have a hot box, is you can actually use the IZMC, which is the Infinity Zigbee motor controller that goes on the end of the battery pack. You can plug, well, it's very helpful to plug this into the battery pack. It won't do anything without. Plug this into the end of the battery pack, just simply get it lined up, push it right on. You can then plug this into the end of the battery pack, and at that point in time you can use the open, stop, and close buttons on the side of the IZMC to achieve the same goal. It's just going to be more cumbersome to do so because this is designed to save power, so as soon as that motor hits a mechanical limit, it's going to quit sending power, so you have to do a lot more of this up and down adjustment business as opposed to be able to keeping hot power on it and just continuing to turn. So it does suffice. It's certainly more cumbersome. That's why the hot box is recommended. Okay, so we have that ready to go.